So we're going to talk about animal advocacy and farmed animals. We always like to work with the triple S framework. So we see global challenges and we see a lot of them, and we believe that you have to prioritize relentlessly. So triple S stands for sizable, solvable, and sorely neglected. And I think sizable, it's safe to say that farmed animals is super sizable because at any moment in any time, there are 23 billion land animals living in farmed conditions. And so that's 9 zeros. And we didn't even then start to talk about fish, because then we're getting into the trillions, which is 12 zeros. And it's super hard to grasp. And then we're talking about sorely neglected. And I think that's also a big reason for Sofia to start working in this area 8 years ago. 8 years ago, because she wanted to give so much more attention to this topic. And she will tell more about that later, of course. And solvable, I hope that after today we get so much information from Sofia, and I'm sure, because I already know that there's going to be a lot of resources to share with you, the crowd, about everything that you can do in order to solve this. So I am both curious and also super hopeful for this talk. Well, I know that Sofia told me that she always zones out during introductions. Well, I hope that you didn't, because the biggest and the best part is just yet to come. I want to give the floor to Sofia, who has told me earlier that working at Hive is not just work for her, but it's a calling. And I'm super curious to learn more about that. So, Sofia, I'll give the floor to you.
Thank you so much, Marianne, for this lovely introduction. Hi, everyone. It's so lovely to be here with you today. You may notice that my voice is a bit softer. I'm recovering from a voice strain, so thank you for leaning in with me today. As Marianne introduced me, here I am, speaking in front of you as the founder and an executive director of an impactful organization fighting a global problem. But it took a while to get here. In this talk, I'll tell you about my story and how and why I got involved in factory farming, but also what you can do to help solve this problem. When I was little, I wanted to change the world. I imagined myself ending wars, eradicating poverty, stopping climate change. And I never imagined that the problem I end up solving would be dinner. And yet here I am, dedicating my career to ending factory farming, because it's one of the world's biggest and most urgent problems of the 21st century. And the surprising thing is, we created this problem, but we have a genuine chance of turning things around if we act now. I'm originally from Belarus, a small country in Eastern Europe. In Belarus, people eat a lot of animal products, especially meat. When I was little, my grandparents used to lovingly prepare pork chops for me. They were yummy and I really enjoyed eating them. I never questioned where they came from. I imagined that those pigs lived on happy farms that I saw on those labels and packages. But when I grew up, I realized the reality was very different. Because the majority of the animal products we consume are produced on factory farms. And that means that the whole system is aimed at cost effectiveness, and efficiency is prioritized above all else. This has huge consequences. First of all, the animals pay the cost. Marine has already told you that there are 23 billion animals alive at any time. But did you know that there are 210 billion animals slaughtered every single year? Let this number land for a second. 210 billion animals every year. That's more than the total number of humans that ever lived on this planet. And these animals, they don't live happy lives like I thought. They live in cramped conditions, and the suffering is unimaginable. Secondly, the cost is paid by our planet. Did you know that 15% of the total global greenhouse emissions are made by animal agriculture? For comparison, that's the same as the total transport industry combined. So the next time someone criticizes you for taking a flight, remember this number. And finally, this problem is really bad for the global health because 2/3 of the world's total amount of antibiotics are being fed to farmed animals. This means that our global antibiotic resistance is going up. And this means that when we consume animal products, our health is getting worse and it puts pressure on the global health system. So I would like to stop here and ask you a question. What do you personally find most compelling about this issue? You can use the reasons I've just mentioned, or you can use your own. There are no wrong answers. Please write your answers in the chat. Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. It seems like everyone has their own reasons, whether it's animal suffering or climate change, the waste. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate it. You may be wondering, if this problem is so bad for 210 billion animals a year, humans in our home, the planet that we live on, why haven't we solved it yet? Well, there are three main reasons. Too powerful, too hard to change behavior, and too few people with power in the movement. Let's take it step by step. So first of all, this animal agriculture is a $2 trillion industry. Now I know I keep throwing numbers around. For comparison, the whole movement to end factory farming spends less than $300 million. That's 6,500 times less than what the industry has. So you may imagine that when it comes to lobbying for animal welfare or maybe advertising the products, the industry almost always wins because the money decides almost everything there and we just don't stand a chance. Secondly, behavioral change is really hard. Now, if everyone just stopped eating animal products today, factory farming probably won't exist tomorrow. If only it was so easy. Unfortunately, behavior change is really hard. Just think about the last time you asked your friend to stop smoking. And think about asking someone to change what they do 3 times a day. especially when it has cultural and identity implications. Honestly, I don't blame people for eating animal products because changing behavior and solving this problem on the individual level is just not viable. Just like I chomped on my pork chops when I was little, so does everyone else. And I think this problem has to be solved on a systemic level. So I'm curious, given these challenges, what do you think is the hardest barrier to overcome to end factory farming? You can use the barriers I spoke about, or you can use your own, and please type in the chat. I would love to hear from you. Wow, thank you so much for your engagement. I see that there are many more barriers that I mentioned, and I'm just so happy that you were aware of them. Thank you so much for sharing. Feel free to keep sharing, I'll just carry on. So the what I shared may come as a bit of a bummer. It's a real David and Goliath situation. But I have some good news for you. Because of the difference between the scale of the problem and the scale of our response, your contribution can have an outsized impact. I believe together we can imagine a different world. I wonder what would happen if we made factory farming unprofitable, unspeakable, and unthinkable. I believe that we can build this world. Imagine you can eat the food you like and not harm a single animal. Imagine our planet has 15% less greenhouse gas emissions. Imagine if our food system placed humans, animals, and the planet at its center and not the profit. I believe that we can build this world, but honestly, right now, the society chooses not to build it. Let's move on a little to my own story of how I got involved. Now, honestly, I'm just like you. I graduated with dreams of a successful career, a lot of money, maybe even becoming famous. But honestly, all my plans went out of the window when I learned about factory farming. So when I was looking for my next job, the first priority was I want this job to contribute to end factory farming. And half a year later, I was lucky enough to get my first job at Veganuary, a charity that helps to build a vegan world. But after a few years of working there, I really enjoyed myself. I realized something was missing. I knew my team, but I didn't really know what else was going on and how personally I could make the most impact. This is the idea where the idea of Hive was born. I wanted to create a global, online, free community to unite everyone to work on factory farming because I believe that only by working together in really good coordination, we can actually stand a chance of solving this problem. Now, I'm going to be honest with you here again. This is the hardest job I've ever had. Building a charity from scratch with no funding was tough, and I had to build it up as a side project, then fight for funding to eventually only get it after 1 year. But also, it's the most enjoyable and the most rewarding job I've ever had. Every day I get to feel that I'm helping the movement, I'm helping end this problem. Now our community has over 4,000 people in over 100 countries, and seeing their work every day makes me so hopeful that together we can stand a chance of solving this problem. I would love to talk now about what you can do to end factory farming, but I'm curious to hear from you again. What do you think is the most effective way of helping farmed animals today? It could be what you can do or what the movement can do. I would love to hear answers. Again, no right and wrong. I'll share my info in just a minute. Wow, such varied and thoughtful answers. I can see everything from going vegan to donating to corporate campaigns, alt proteins. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your knowledge. I feel like I'm very honored to speak to you today, to such a knowledgeable crowd. Okay, feel free to keep sharing. I'm going to continue with the final part of this talk, the most important one, what you personally can do. Now, I know that you may be thinking, right, Sophia, you left your job, you started this charity. Well, not everyone can do that. I totally get it. That's why the top option that I recommend to everyone is effective donations, because you don't have to leave your job. And surprisingly, even small amounts, such as $25 a month, can make a huge difference. Because the movement is extremely underfunded, and the charities don't lack ideas or impactful interventions, they lack the funds to make them happen. And your donations, even if small, combined together, can make an outsized impact. And the best news here, you don't even have to think which charities to donate to. There are a few evaluators that I'm going to share with you in the resources after the talk, such as FarmKind, EA Animal Welfare Fund, and animal charity evaluators that could make this decision for you and make sure that your dollars go to the most effective charity. Aside from donations, you can also work in positions which influence the animal agriculture. You may know that getting a job in an animal nonprofit can be really hard. And the surprising thing is, at the moment, because we lack people in the position of power that influence animal agriculture, we really need those people to take these roles. For example, imagine a politician who is so passionate about factory farming and ending it. He helps animal advocates push a new welfare reform. Imagine a award-winning Netflix documentary maker who makes such a great documentary about factory farming that hundreds of millions of people watch it, and it sparks a global outrage about factory farming. And the good news is these roles are starting to be included on animal advocacy job boards, such as the Animal Advocacy Careers website, which I'll also share in the resources. The third option is to work in effective animal nonprofits. Now, I did say that getting a job there is a bit hard, but there are a few bottlenecks at the moment there. And if you have these skills, it's really worth having a shot to see if you can help these charities. For example, executive leadership and strategy. We all need leaders at the moment. Fundraising and campaigning to fund the charities, but also to make those successful corporate campaigns come true. We also need people in operations, legal advocacy, and policy roles, as well as people with expertise in low and middle income countries. Don't worry about remembering it, we will send you resources for all of this. One option that I'm especially excited to share with you is potentially considering starting your own nonprofit, just like I did. Now, it is hard, but it's super rewarding. And in the next 2 weeks, you can apply to Ambitious Impacts Incubator, where you can potentially have a go at starting your own nonprofit. There will be a link in the resources. And the final option is to consider volunteering. Maybe you're already donating, but what if you have a few hours spare and some much needed skills? Maybe you are a designer who could help put together a report in a few hours a week. Or maybe you're a lawyer who could provide pro bono advice. Or maybe you're just a skilled, experienced individual and you can potentially serve on a board of an effective nonprofit, because these roles are much easier to get, but are really important to the success of that nonprofit. And if you want to get these roles, one of the best things to do is to join Hive, introduce yourself, and lay out your skills and let nonprofits contact you or proactively contact them. I know I've shared a lot with you and it can be a little overwhelming, but I don't think that you don't have to do everything. Remember, we can only solve this problem together. So my request from you is to ask yourself, do I want to give skills? Do I want to give time? Do I want to give resources? Or do I just want to learn right now? Because this problem is so neglected, your contribution, however big or small, can make a huge impact, especially when combined with thousands of others, and there are thousands of others. None of us chose to be born in the world with factory farming, but together we can choose to fight for a world where it doesn't exist. Thank you.
Thanks. That was so great. I see a lot of people clapping their hands. Thank you all for your attention and for the love. Well, all right. Let that sink in for a moment. And I want to open up the floor for all of you to ask any question you have. And we have until, well, say 53, so a bit before the whole hour. So we have some time for your questions. So just raise your hand. You can see the little button of raise hand at the bottom bar. And then, yeah, ask away. And thanks a lot, Sofia. I see a first question from Noortje.
Yes, hello.
Oh, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, great. First of all, thank you so much. It was very inspiring and super clear message. I have a question for you because in the Netherlands there's a party that's the party for the animals, let's translate it like that, and they propose to do glass walls at the factories. What is your opinion about that? Do you think that that could in some way make more like a positive change or drive a positive change to less yeah, animals in cages, so to say?
Thank you so much, Natia. That's a really great question and a great example of a potentially effective tactic. I'm not 100% caught up on the research, so it seems like a good question to ask on Hive, but I can tell you that even if all the slaughterhouses had glass walls, the industry, because they have so much money, they could still find a way to hide it. Because these places, they wouldn't be on the same streets as McDonald's. They would be hidden away somewhere on the field and nobody would see it. And they would try and pass some kind of law that people can't trespass or look at it or take pictures. So I don't think it's necessarily the be all and end all solution, but if worked as a part of a strategy, it could be a tactic that could be effective. I hope that answers your question.
Right, right. No, thank you so much. Yeah, they probably will find a way indeed. That's unfortunate. Yeah, thanks a lot for your insight.
Thanks for your question. I see that Neil has his hand raised.
Hi, thanks a lot for the nice talk. I was just curious about a couple of things. So first, what is your view on like incremental welfare progress versus like total eradication? Like where should people put efforts? And the second question kind of related to this is, are there some resources that you know of like ways that people who are like engineers and people who make technology can get involved in like technological solutions to these problems? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, great questions. I'm trying to remember both of them in my head. So the first thing was about incremental reforms, which makes sense. I think this is the age-old argument in the movement. You find that there are a lot of meetups where people discuss the same thing. I don't think anyone has come to any particular conclusion. However, I try and hold like various perspectives as a movement builder. But what I can tell you is because the industry has so much money, like that's 6,500 times more than we do. Like we will never have the same as they do. Asking them to completely stop factory farming or somehow ending it in like one day is just not going to be viable for us. I think we have to work incrementally and see how we can apply leverage year by year so that eventually we have a chance of ending it. We already know that corporate campaigns, for example, which is incremental change, have been one of the most cost-effective things that we've done in the movement, and it has risen the price of eggs, at least for some time, and it has forced the farmers to make cages bigger so their costs grew. And we know that by incremental change, we can potentially stand a chance rather than being completely abolitionist and asking for things that we know that we just won't get. Um, and your second question, I think I've already forgotten. Could you remind me?
Sure. Yeah, it was just about how like technologists or engineers. I feel like there's not many resources on how like we can get involved in terms of a technology standpoint in this problem. So I'm just curious if you had any resources for this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really exciting time to get involved. Just off the top of my head, I think a lot of people need, I guess it really depends on what exactly you do. Like if you are in like software engineering, or charities literally need your help. If you are maybe a technologist, like a food technologist, then alt protein industry is perfect, and I've linked alt protein jobs in the resources. We do have quite a lot of people with technological skills on Hive, so I do encourage you to join. We have a software engineering channel where people talk about what they can do, and you can just ask in help requests and see what other opportunities there are. But the one exciting thing I'd like to mention is there is a startup called Innovate Animal Ag, who produced sexing, which means that when eggs hatch, before they hatch, they can tell if it's a male or a female. So the male chick culling is just not happening. So this is the kind of change where you can get involved if you're really good with technology. Thank you for your
Thanks a lot.
question.
Yeah.
Thanks. And then I see that Diego also has his hand raised.
Hello. Yes, I have a few questions. The first one is regarding the resources of charities you mentioned where we could apply for volunteering or for work. If you're going to send recommendations for those.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll send a link to a Join Hive, where you can, and also a link to a few job boards where you can apply for work. So you can choose whether you want a paid role, or maybe you want to stay in your job and do some skilled volunteering. So there will be plenty of job boards. They're very comprehensive. I also recommend networking. There is a link for that too. And you can join Hive to see what volunteering positions are available.
Okay, great. And the other question is regarding the products that are available in the supermarket on the certification side. I'm from Spain, and here over the last few years, we've seen a big change with regards to certifications that are now available from this company called Animal Welfare, the green inverted heart kind of logo. So I wanted to ask, because right now you see it in pork, in beef, in many animal products, how reliable it is and what exactly it means, because we see these certifications, but we really don't have much information about how reliable it is, if the inspections are surprise inspections or not, and what's exactly going on in the farms that have the certification versus the ones that don't have it.
Yeah, that's really tricky, and I'm so glad that you folks are asking such thoughtful questions, because this is another old age argument. Because animal advocates have actually, I think it was last year, they were fighting over whether certifications are important because they can show that the animals would at least try to be treated well, or some people saying that they are meaningless. And I don't think that there is a particular answer to that. There is some research that says that people generally don't really look at the labels, but I think some labels could potentially be impactful. Just think of free range eggs. I think everyone knows what this means. So I think if we can come up with some kind of labeling that's just as effective, potentially that could be impactful.
Okay, thank you.
All right, then we have Kristen as the next one.
Hi, Sophia. Great talk. It was very interesting. Thank you. So I just have like a bit of a long question to ask, and it's more about like maybe your thoughts on this area. So I live in the global south in South Africa specifically, and I often meet lots of people who are working in high impact areas. For example, one of my good friends works in Tanzania on hunting of humans, because that's something that still happens, unfortunately. And a lot of the people that I meet, because I'm in these like circles, they often get angry with people who are from the global south who choose to work in animal welfare, and stuff like that. Because for us, we experience so much suffering on a daily basis, and a lot of the communities we help, the people experience like large scale suffering. So they get angry when, skilled, talented people like lawyers or um, marketing designers choose to work on animals instead of like helping the people and the communities here in Africa. So I was just wondering, like, I really liked the idea that you said about systemic change. I was wondering, do you have like any insight for someone like me who does work in the global south and does community building on how to deal with the anger that people feel? Like, how do we largely see it as like a problem of the North, where, people have so much time that they can focus on animal welfare, whereas in Africa, it's a bit harder. So I was just wondering if you have any thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thanks so much for your question, Kristen. I think that it's hard for me to answer this question since I'm not from South Africa and I've never experienced it because I left Belarus and then I started focusing on factory farming. But I must admit, my family and friends still do not understand what I do. And every time I explain to them, they don't get it. And I think that if I were to give any kind of recommendation, is really try and frame it in a way that shows how it impacts not just animals, but the world. In this talk in particular, I really wanted to present factory farming as a problem that's not just animals, because it just isn't. It impacts human health. It causes a lot of pollution that, from the rivers that some of these people probably drink from. And I think that maybe it's a chance for you to try and communicate it in a way that, like, hey, I'm not just doing it for animals, I'm doing it because this problem is bad for all of us. We are all going to be affected by climate change. And hey, like 15% is actually caused by animal agriculture, and that's why I don't think it's very good. But at the end of the day, as someone from Belarus, which is a low middle income country myself, I can tell you that sometimes you just have to agree to disagree and try and focus on the stakeholders that really matter to you. And maybe some people think you're a bit crazy, but as long as the people who really matter don't think that, and you can still keep progress with your work, that's the most important thing.
Thanks, Sophia. You give great answers. And I still see more hands raised. Fatih, you're the next one in line.
Thank you. Thank you, Sophia. Actually, the question is similar to Kristen's question as well. I'm from a mid income country as well, from Turkey. And also I was thinking about the cultural aspect of it. So people tend to consume meat a lot. But the term is, what I was thinking is, there is demand, but also in terms of the industrial production side, there could be challenges. So how can we make them? Do you have any research or numbers what the industry is facing from the factory farming side? So to make the change within that industry, perhaps they might be facing some challenges to be able to change that. So rather than changing the people who are consuming or the policymakers, is it possible to come up with a approach where they can see their challenges and make it easier for them to change, perhaps? So do you have any research, or do you think that's possible?
Sorry, could you repeat your question, please?
So the question is basically, we are talking about changing ourselves as also the consumers, but could there be a way that we understand the industry and its pains, and perhaps make it easier for them to change? So are there any research in the farming industry, or are there any facts on that they are aware that it could be changed? I'm taking the conversation in different perspectives, so this is what comes in my mind, and I was curious about this.
Sorry, just so that I understand. So you're asking if there's been any research about the industry making it easier for people to change their diet?
Yes, perhaps, or for them to shift their animal farming, perhaps more getting incremental change, as we spoke in another question's answer, actually. So make the industry change and create perhaps a vision from the industry itself. So could it be done? And also the question is basically, are there any research that the industry somehow says, so these are the challenges, these are the costs, this is why we are talking about efficiency and effectiveness, and perhaps to make it easier for them, and it could somehow initiate change faster. So basically the question is that, do you have any research or do you have any insight on this?
Yeah, thank you so much for explaining this extra time. I think what you're raising is a really important point, and it's something that I would really love everyone to consider. Is we sometimes position ourselves as like, oh, we versus them, but at the end of the day, we all want our planet to be healthier. We all want to be healthier, and I think when you ask most people in the world, they probably don't want to harm farmed animals. So it is all about behavior change. And I think what I really love is trying to think of it as like, okay, how can we work together? And like, if the industry is for profit, can we like make them interested in alt protein? And there have been a lot of investments from the industry in alt protein companies. Some of them have done well, some of them have not done well. It hasn't been like en masse. I don't think I'm aware of much research, but I do know that if you ask on the Hive research channel, we have a research channel lead that would be able to help you find that particular research. But I do really like where you're going with this, trying to be like, okay, in low middle income countries, individual change probably really hard. So let's try and go on a systemic level. And I think convincing these people that if they use like in vivo sexing technology, or if they switch to alt protein, they will make more money, they may potentially consider it. But we also have found out that sometimes they may not, due to the pressure of the industry, the regulations, the lobbying, the subsidies. It's like a whole big system. So haven't answered your question fully, but I told you where to get the answer.
Thank you.
All right, then we have room for the last two people that have their hand raised. The first one is Felix.
Yeah, thank you, Sophia and Maureen, for this great discussion today and your passion and energy. What I wonder is now at the organizational level, you mentioned you have 3,500 people in the community. So how do you measure the impact of this community, and what is the impact of your organization? So these are my two questions.
Thank you so much for asking. I always love geeking out about impact and numbers. So we try and measure most of our impact in the concrete changes that our community members make as a result of being a part of the community. For example, the first impact point we ever got was someone who got a paid gig as a result of a chat on the Slack space that we created. Then someone found a co-founder for an impactful organization. Then people started finding employees, they started finding funding. So what we do is we try and learn about this, and log them and count how many instances we have each year. But I'd be lying if I said that it's so easy, because our communities are just this huge like hive, no pun intended, of interaction. So we don't know what's happening between members. And for example, I just ask you, hey, like ask a question, help requests. So when help request answered, that's impact for our members and for us. And we also just sometimes measure this fuzzy impact of like, oh, everyone's together and everyone feels like we are working towards ending this problem. We're on the same team because we're part of this community. So I hope I answered that. And usually, like our funders and the community are pretty satisfied with this answer, because it's just really hard to measure it. Otherwise, like we can't really say like how many animals we save per dollar or something.
Thank you very much.
All right, then we're going to the very last question, which is Sarah.
Hello to everyone. Thank you, Marin, and thank you, Sophia, for the impressive speech. What I would like to ask, actually, I don't know whether you've had any direct experience, whether or actually if legislature and the producers' actions are very intertwined, or is there can a strategy be devised whether to target to push through some favorable legislation in the aspect of animal rights, and to create a coercive power towards the producers themselves, so actually to enforce and get them forced to follow regulations, or whether it can be more useful to take a direct approach towards the producers themselves, to target their reputation and to make them act more fairly towards animals as a kind of their marketing.
So would
So
you
this
mind-
like yeah.
Sorry,
So actually, the legislature.
Sorry, I think either mine or your internet cut out for a minute. Would you mind repeating it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm struggling with the network connection. Yes. I don't know whether you can hear me now. So actually, yeah, which you think the better approach is to target legislature and make policymakers create favorable regulative for so regarding farm animals, or to be in direct dialogue with the producers themselves.
Thanks so much for repeating your question and for asking. I think it's very thoughtful and very strategic. From my side, I don't think that I can give you a direct answer what is better, but from what I've seen, it seems like you need to have a dual approach, because just changing what producers do or just changing the legislation probably isn't going to do, isn't going to win all the animal welfare and factory farming in the end. Just as an example, for example, the corporate campaigns have been really effective when it comes to actual companies changing their practices, even though there was no law, for example, for them to go cage-free. However, there has been a really good Prop 12 proposition in California, where they actually outlawed some of the most cruel practices in that whole state, which means that we no longer have to ask these companies to enforce this. However, there is also a second level. Sometimes, even when there is legislation, if you don't do the checks on the producers, whether they've implemented it, they sometimes don't follow the law and you have to do law enforcement. So my hunch as an answer to your question is that you have to do both, but depending on the culture and the country you're working on, you're going to have to use the combination in like various degrees.
Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for asking all these thoughtful questions, and thanks for taking the time and giving all these great answers, Sophia. I think it was very inspiring. I see a lot of people that are already, well, leaving, but they are all very enthusiastic and grateful. So thanks for all that feedback already. And well, I have to say, I also really enjoyed what you said. I took a lot of notes, but I think the part where you're sharing that it's hard, but it's also so rewarding. I think that really resonates. Yeah. And I think also resonates a lot with people maybe in this community, because it's not always easy, but it's so rewarding and it's so important to do this work. So thanks a lot. I want to close off the plenary part by first, of course, thanking you again so much for your talk. If after this talk you think I want to get involved with Hive, there's going to be tons of resources that will be kindly sent to you, provided by Sophia. I think it's even 2 pages, so buckle up. You'll receive the email very soon from me. If you want to get involved in the School for Moral Ambition, which is of course a bit more meta rather than really dived into the global challenge of factory farming, then there are a few ways to get involved with us. Read the book Moral Ambition, get into our platform, and if you already have a project you want to work on, you can find potential collaborators via the request page. You can join a circle. I've mentioned it already briefly. If you want to learn more about it, we host onboarding sessions. If you want to start a circle, you can join a circle starter training. You can all find it on the platform. And if you have a very cool idea and you need help from the community, we're hosting a digital soapbox soon. So you can also find information about that on our platform. Then a very practical moment where I'm going to add the elevator music. Well, not really, but of course we're continuing with a smaller group that wants to stick around for the more deep conversations. But if you have to leave right now, that's absolutely no problem. It would be very appreciated if you fill in this type form. It's always a bummer to ask, but this really helps us to see if we want to continue with this pilot of the Moral Ambition Talks or not. So your feedback is invaluable. So if you could all take a moment to fill this in, that would be very great. And I see a lot of people sending messages in the chat. Very nice. Thank you so much for all the nice, heartwarming messages. That really is, that's great. Thanks. So then I want to invite all of you to start thinking about, all right, if we can continue the conversation, do I want to do that with either Hive, which is Sophia's charity, who's building a global movement of animal advocacy animal advocacy careers, which is the other breakout room, a global movement of people working in animal advocacy? Or do you want to join a breakout room with animal advocacy careers who are really focusing on the trainings, the job boards, and all that? Which is, of course, also part of Sophia, but she's more focusing on building a global community, because together we're stronger. Or maybe you want to join the conversation with me, representing the School for Moral Ambition. I'm going to ask Lieve, who has kindly created the breakout rooms, to open up the rooms. And you can all just choose the breakout room that you like. We'll see each other all there. And then we're going to close off a little bit before half the hour. So we close as well. We close plenary, so we don't lose each other in these breakout rooms and then go into our evenings. I know that Sophia is going to hop off. So once again, thank you so much. And then I'll see the rest of you all in the breakout rooms. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I hope we didn't interrupt too bluntly. I was still semi-giving an answer, so sorry if I ended it very quickly, Denise. Yeah, so thanks all for joining. I think it was very cool to hear your questions and well, to hear Sophia's super engaging talk, and Kevin, also thank you so much for hosting. Engine, thank you also for being there and answering your questions for animal advocacy careers. I want to close off. Oh, I think, are we all back? No, oh yeah, I think we're all back. Perfect. That I don't miss any people that are still hanging around. Just grabbing this. All right. Sorry. I was so deep in my breakout room that I have to refocus again. So thanks all for being here. The link for this feedback form will also be shared in the follow-up email. I will send the follow-up email either tonight or tomorrow morning. So all the resources from Sofia will be just in your inbox. I really appreciate you coming and also being here for the full 1.5 hours. That's a lot of dedication for your Monday evening. Oh, that's already done. Yeah, then I just want to end with saying that I always believe that there's a big power in small groups of thoughtful, committed citizens. By the famous quote of Margaret Mead, because those small groups of thoughtful, committed citizens, they can really change the world. So thank you all for being here, and I hope to see more of you, and I wish you a great rest of your day.